Hi, I'm Josh,
I'm Ela.
I'm Ben.
I'm Paul.
And I'm Samantha.
and today we will be giving you our investment recommendation based on our thorough analysis of Air France-KLM and Lufthansa's sustainability practices and their environmental and financial impacts. With an industry-wide average fleet size of around 400, Air France-KLM is a moderately large airline with 554 aircraft in its fleet. They had 104 million passengers, used about 9 million tons of jet fuel, and emitted about 31 million tons of carbon dioxide in 2019. Lufthansa, on the other hand, is a slightly larger airline with a fleet of 763 aircraft. They had 145.2 million passengers, used about 11.5 million tons of jet fuel, and emitted about 36 million tons of carbon dioxide in 2019. The three sustainability practices we have chosen to focus on are sustainable aviation fuels, operational efficiency, and zero waste operations.
Let's take a look at sustainable aviation fuel. Sustainable aviation fuel is an alternative jet fuel source and a substitute for fossil jet fuels. The fuel is made from sustainable resources like waste oils, non-fossil CO2, rather than being refined from petroleum. And the overall benefit is that SAF can produce an 80% decrease in CO2 emissions. The impact from the airline industry's carbon footprint is on track to continue to grow. The practice of using sustainable aviation fuel can prove to be the most effective in terms of limiting the amount of new CO2 in the atmosphere. As you can see in the graph, CO2 from global aviation is increasing dramatically. Let's take a look at how Lufthansa and Air France are involved using this practice. As of this moment, Air France has been at the top when it comes to using SAF. According to Argus Media, they have been purchasing 120,000 liters of it annually. They have taken the steps to partner with the fuel companies to have access to SAF, and they have been purchasing a large share annually, and they have implemented a biofuel program to ensure they are not incurring all costs related to using SAF. When it comes down to being environmentally conscious, we believe it is important to be able to measure productivity. Air France has been transparent with their usage, partnerships, and estimated future usages, so from an investor standpoint, it will be easy to measure their effect on the environment. It also helps to ensure this is not a PR stunt. The pricing aspect can prove to be detrimental if not implemented the right way. As of now, SAF is 4 times more expensive than regular fuel for Air France, according to Argus Media. And on a positive note, the French government is investing $1.7 billion to SAF research. Besides using the traditional SAF, Lufthansa Group has been heavily involved in research and development for sustainable fuels. They are specifically involved in creating an electricity-based biofuel using water, electricity, and recycled CO2. This technology will not release any new CO2, it only releases what is extracted from the atmosphere, which allows for net zero emissions while using that fuel. Lufthansa has partnered with Neste, which gives them direct access to Neste's estimated 1 million tons of renewable fuel. They also have an offsetting program where customers pay around 50% of the surcharge for flights using SAF. When it comes to pricing, it is 3 times more expensive than regular jet fuel, but it is likely that the German government will use the aviation money to cover the cost of the sustainable practice. Now let's look at comparison. As of now, Air France is outperforming Lufthansa when it comes to usage. However, Lufthansa's research and development team is promising technology that would outperform Air France given that the market is still extremely small. Lufthansa's partnership with Neste also has more potential than Air France with Shell because of their production capabilities.
When examining their cons, the cost of SAF is more expensive for Air France-KLM. Lufthansa, their new technology is still a few years out, but Air France-KLM is able to use SAF now. The next sustainability practice we're examining is operational efficiency. Improving operational efficiency can reduce jet fuel consumption, thus reducing greenhouse gas emissions. As jet fuel is one of airlines' most significant costs, improving operational efficiency can also lower their expenses. Air France-KLM has been implementing many new policies to increase operational efficiency and thus decrease jet fuel usage. For example, because lighter aircrafts use less fuel, Air France-KLM has implemented weight reduction measures on board. To reduce the weight of the aircraft even further, they have also been reducing the extra fuel carried per flight. Air France-KLM has also been trying to increase operational efficiency and sustainability by optimizing flight operations. They have recently begun using OptiClimb and OptiDirect in their aircrafts, and both of these systems aim to reduce jet fuel consumption. Furthermore, Air France-KLM has made a conscious effort to modernize its fleet and replace older aircrafts with more fuel-efficient models. On May 20th, 2020, Air France-KLM ended Airbus A380 operations and replaced it with the more fuel-efficient Airbus A350 and Boeing 787. Air France-KLM has been tracking the impact of their policies through tracking their jet fuel usage. They made it a goal to reduce fuel usage by 4 million liters in 2019, and through these policies, Air France-KLM was able to exceed this goal and reduce total fuel consumption by 4.3 million liters. In addition to tracking environmental impact, Air France-KLM tracked how these sustainability improvements impacted their expenses. According to their financial statements, despite the decreased jet fuel consumption, an increase in jet fuel price caused Air France-KLM profit to decrease by $320.3 million in 2019. According to Air France-KLM's universal registration document, they currently have 108 new, more fuel-efficient aircrafts on order. And from these new sustainability policies, in the future, Air France-KLM's expenses will decrease with jet fuel consumption.
Lufthansa, on the other hand,
partnered with both Google Cloud and Honeywell Avioso, leaders in the software industry, in increasing their fuel efficiency. They've also invested in a lot of new fuel-efficient aircraft. In 2019 alone, they got 27 new aircraft that emit 25% less emission. Retiring of their inefficient aircraft that these replace helps a lot with increasing their fuel efficiency on average. So more statistics on Lufthansa. They have 198 new aircraft on order up to 2027 delivery dates. So with the current fleet of 763, this represents 30% of their entire fleet. And in terms of their fuel consumption efficiency, in 2019, their efficiency was 3.67 liters of kerosene to transport one passenger over a distance of 100 kilometers. They've increased this fuel efficiency by 30% since 1994 and have proven to take a lot of care on this matter. Now, if you look on the graph on the left, this was a calculated average in 2017 of airlines' fuel efficiency. The graph on the right shows that 80% of the key metrics behind this fuel efficiency rating come from seating density and aircraft fuel rate. These are both increased significantly in this modern aircraft and thus reducing operating costs and creating additional synergies. Now, Lufthansa has 5 subsidiaries and their lowest score being a 4.0 in fuel efficiency and their highest being a 3.15. With their new aircraft on order, as you can see on the right, hover around 3.0 on the efficiency rating. These figures should be brought much closer and thus reduce a ton of cost. When it comes to comparing the two, Air France-KLM has been historically rated in the top 4 with 3.17 liters of kerosene on average. However, Lufthansa has 198 more efficient aircraft scheduled to be delivered, which represent 30% of their current fleet, as opposed to Air France-KLM's 19.5%. What this means is that there's a lot more room for Lufthansa to expand and to lower their expenses.
So next I'm going to talk about the third and final sustainability practice, which is the reduction of single-use practice in order to create a zero-waste environment on board. Single-use plastic products are often discarded incorrectly and end up in landfills or the oceans. Landfills create methane, which is a key contributor to global climate change. According to the IATA, passengers alone accounted for 5.7 million tons of waste in 2016, with the exception that that number doubles by the year 2030. Again, this is an issue because plastic causes 90 to 95% of all pollution in general. All of this waste costs the airline industry $927 million as well. KLM uses 4 sustainability practices in their operations: reducing, reusing, recycling, and redesigning. They use in-company recycling, which is a practice that allows the company to both save money and recycle materials in-house. This practice overall has reduced waste by 9%, and their goal is to have that volume of waste decrease by 50% by 2030. This ties into the redesign process, as these recycled materials are turned into trays, utensils, and even plane repair parts for the airline, which saves not only in material costs, but also on environmental impact. Reduction of material required means that when plastic is needed to be used, less of it will be used. An example of this would be the redesigning of plastic cups in order to use less material, again, cutting on costs and helping the environment. This also saves money in the long term. Also, KLM considers the fact that some reusable materials are heavier than plastic, and they opt to recycle or redesign where plastic cannot be eliminated. The metrics we used were tons of plastic thrown away and recycled, number of reusable items incorporated into flights per year, and amount of fuel consumption. Instead of considering these metrics as a static number, we have decided to analyze them more dynamically as an increase or decrease per year in order to show an overall trend. KLM has eliminated 210 million plastic items per year, including cutlery items and stirring sticks on board. There has been a 1,300 ton reduction in plastic per year, and fuel consumption has reduced by 20% in the past year as well.
Rather than providing all business class customers with a blanket wrapped in plastic, they replaced the plastic with a paper brand. Continuing with their in-flight service, Lufthansa also replaced their plastic cups with recycled plastic, avoiding the issue of plastic waste as they use recycled materials. Going further, Lufthansa also realized that a lot of amenities they provide go unused. To avoid this, Lufthansa has instituted a demand-driven system to supply the cabin with in-flight services so that they do not need to waste as much plastic. Lufthansa has reported that they are responsible for saving 6 tons of plastic waste in 2019 via their recycled water bottles. When including common plastic goods such as cups and cutlery, their estimates show that they have replaced nearly 400 million plastic products with reusable materials. Lastly, Lufthansa also utilizes several key performance indicators in order to track energy consumption and waste annually, and they use this information to alter their onboard practices. Thus, they reduce the weight of their flights, which lowers the amount of jet fuel burned and lowers the cost of each flight. Both Lufthansa and Air France KLM have increased their use of recycled materials in order to be more environmentally friendly and to cut costs. However, it appears that Air France KLM has gone deeper. They instituted a holistic review to their plastic usage, which enabled them to cut other heavy materials in order to become more cost efficient. In terms of the cons, both companies acknowledge that this change is far from immediate and may take time to see positive change. Additionally, both Lufthansa and Air France KLM recognize that it may be more convenient to utilize single-use plastics. It appears that Air France KLM seems to go deeper than Lufthansa with their research and has the advantage here.
Now moving on to the finances of both companies. Currently, the PE ratio for Lufthansa is 3.5 and for KLM is 8.02, showing that KLM is more overvalued than Lufthansa, making the latter a better investment. Furthermore, looking at the EV over EBITDA, we can see that Lufthansa is the clear winner here as well, with a ratio of negative 7.1 as opposed to KLM's negative 5.1. The sales volume of Lufthansa is also higher than that of KLM's, meaning higher gross profit and net income, which shows that Lufthansa is a larger and more successful airline. All in all, financial ratios as well as pure income and sales point to Lufthansa as being the better investment.
And this brings us to a final recommendation. Based on our research, we suggest an investment in Lufthansa. We took a look at how each company has implemented the 3 identified practices while analyzing the finances and progress behind them. Although some data included in this presentation may show that Air France KLM is currently more sustainable in terms of SAF and single-use plastics, we feel that it is equally as, if not more important, to look ahead when you're making a long-term investment. The sustainability market is very undeveloped and Air France is ahead in some cases at the moment. However, Lufthansa has a greater opportunity to increase sustainability and decrease expenses from their innovative initiatives, research, and developments. They're likely to surpass their airline competitors' sustainability impact while increasing profits within the next 3 to 5 years. To specify, Lufthansa's variations in fuel efficiency across their subsidiaries provide a large opportunity for them to bridge the efficiency gap. Their substantial investment in updating their fleet to more efficient aircraft has the potential to improve overall efficiency and decrease related costs at a much higher rate than Air France KLM. Looking forward, Lufthansa's research and development suggest their technology and advancements will put them ahead as a sustainable and profitable airline.
Thank you for watching our presentation, and we hope you will take our analysis into account with your final decision.